Hi, my name is Larry, and this is my brother Daryl, and this is my other brother Daryl. My name ain't Larry, but I will be interviewing Daryl Evans on this episode of the Always Go Big interview podcast. Daryl started his first business at the age of 19. Currently, he's one of the founders of a hip agency here at the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. He's been sharpening his axe on bigger dreams for the past 12 years until just recently somebody called him out. They said, "You've been talking about this for a long time. Where is it?" Well, that got Daryl fired up. He launched his Mind Shift podcast, and we're getting close to the start of season 2. Daryl is a great example of someone that, although hadn't launched his big dream yet, never let it go. He always knew that he would do something big. Put your thinking caps on. You might just learn something in this episode of the Always Go Big interview podcast.
For joining us on this episode of the Always Go Big interview podcast, where we are interviewing Daryl Evans. Daryl, what's up, my man? How are things going for you?
I'm great, Troy. Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Now, you came out of the entrepreneurial closet at the age of 19 while attending UNLV, did a business, and now you've got this agency. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Yoco Local, we're a digital marketing agency, HubSpot partner, based here in Las Vegas, corporate headquartered here. We actually started our company in 2010 after looking around the local business brick and mortar landscape and watching transformation happening in marketing from offline to online and watching a lot of business owners struggle. I myself have been an entrepreneur for again, since 19 and really full-time entrepreneurship, dove in around 27, 28 and started online in 2002. So that seemed a little odd, but I was always looking for a way to leverage my time. And as a solopreneur back then, at that time, I was in the mortgage industry. I found myself working from bell to bell, sun up to sundown, and then till 1 and 2 in the morning. And I said, there's got to be a better way, which is a key phrase I always use. There's got to be a better way. So whenever you feel that way, you start looking around, looking for answers to questions. So I got online around 2002, 2003. But here we are in 2010. My business partner and I met around 2008 or 9. I sent him down a rabbit hole, as he would tell you. I told him, he was asking me about this digital marketing thing, and I, had previously come out of owning a mortgage company with some partners. And of course, anyone knows that 2008, 9, 10, what was going on economically, and I was searching for what I wanted to do in the future. And I'd done some work with a business and life coach 3 or 4 years prior. And I'd set out a plan for 20 years. And here I was 3 or 4 years into that plan thinking, I'm not sure that this industry is where I want to be 20 years from now. And so we started my mind started rerouting what I was going to do. Anyway, my business partner steps to me and says, "Hey, I got this idea. You sent me down this rabbit hole. Why don't we go help some business owners with this digital marketing thing?" And at the time, I sort of began consulting with some small companies as I was still exiting the mortgage industry. So we launched the company in 2010. Fast forward to today, we around 2013, we saw some problems with the way the landscape was changing. Of course, digital is ever evolving. And we said the company that we thought we wanted to build needed to change. And so we went through this starting process of a metamorphosis between 13 and 15. Became a HubSpot partner around 2015 at the end of the year. And so now the last 3 years, we've been helping companies, small, local brick and mortar, all the way up to 5-figure, 8-figure, 7-8-figure companies, 9-figure companies expand their digital footprint and drive revenue through the tools and platforms like what we're using today: digital, social, search, paid ads, all that good stuff. We've been blessed to help companies generate well over, I can't keep up with the numbers now, but we're well over 200 million in revenue for some of these companies. And these aren't the big names like the Fortune 500s. We like small, mid-America. So that's who we are here to serve.
Awesome. Now, I've met your business partner. He's a lot like you, really smart, personable. And I remember in our prep, we had talked about you look for employees, people that work for your agency, that already have or are thinking about starting a side hustle.
Yeah, I love it.
Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we run a small business, and so without, first of all, running a marketing agency, a digital agency, it's heavy emphasis on human capital. So we're not running a software as a service business. We're not running a lean online course or training business that has super, super high margins. And I think for entrepreneurs, you have to understand what kind of model you're running. And so with an agency model, you have tight margins. And what that simply means is we are always hiring new talent. Unfortunately, employee mindset individuals, while you can go work in a big, large organization and you have one job to do, and you can do that great, and then there may be a path of ascension inside that corporation. In a small entrepreneurial firm, you're going to have a discipline, a core discipline, but you also are going to have some overlapping cross disciplines that you're going to have to help out in. And anyone who's watching this, who's been in a startup or been in a smaller entrepreneurial environment, they probably know they've been wearing multiple hats. They're great at this, but then they've got 2 or 3 or 4 other disciplines. What we love about having our team members really embrace their own side hustles. So for instance, our graphic designer, who's our head of graphic design, she's also a great marketer, but she's got her own graphic design studio. We push business to her that doesn't fit our umbrella so that she can understand how business runs. Our head of content has published over 50,000 pieces of content online in her content career, in her young career. And she's now got a podcast and she's running her own editing business. So much so that she grew her business by, 278% year over year from 17 to 18. And she now understands what entrepreneurship looks like. It's important for us that we don't hold people back from their dream while they're helping us build ours.
Love it.
And that's a key distinction that I've always believed. There's no reason to hold someone back from what they want to do. We've had 4 people, Troy, go on from our organization and start their own businesses, which is a great
Incredible
thing for us. Like they felt like the environment they sat in with us either gave them the confidence to go start their own businesses, and we love it.
Wow. That's incredible. Now that's you. That's Daryl Evans. That has this philosophy. And I met your co-founder. He's kind of got to share that, right? I mean, how important is it to find a partner, a co-founder that has that same thought process?
So, it's critical, right? And certainly partnerships are tough. To be quite frank, we had there were 3 founders initially, 3 co-founders. Stormy obviously came up with the idea, asked me to come along on the ride, asked another gentleman to come along for the ride. And then we had another key man at the very beginning who wasn't owner, so to speak. But, and unfortunately, we separated from those 2 other individuals. Stormy and I have a very similar personal and business growth mindset. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is we treat the function of the amount of work we do on ourselves far outweighs the work we do from a business standpoint. And what's critical about that comment is that him and I see personal and personal development as the number one key to success. And so he brought a company to our table that he'd been aligned with for several years. And so where we really match eye to eye is that we're always pushing our team to higher levels of leadership, higher levels of growth. And we don't make them do any training classes that we bring to the table, but we provide the vehicle for them to do so. And I think because we lead in that manner, it becomes synergistic, it becomes engaging, and a little bit, people want to be on that ride, and we're grateful.
That's fantastic. That's really, really cool. Well, the employees that work there have that entrepreneurial bug, the entrepreneurial spirit. You as well, I would imagine, have that side hustle.
Maybe it's a side hustle, and the 10 years it's been taking sharpening this axe.
Yeah.
Share a little bit about what's come. You've just launched your podcast. Share a little bit about that.
I did. Thanks for asking about that. Yeah, really excited. Just 2 days ago, we launched the Mind Shift podcast. And the backstory is I read a book. Many people will probably be watching this, know this individual, Tony Robbins. I read Unlimited Power when I was 19 or 20, was the first book introduced to me in the world of personal development outside of my spiritual walk. And I became fascinated by a number of things and mindsets and ideologies. And you got to remember, when you're in your 20s and you're an entrepreneur, you're pushing against, when you're pushing entrepreneurial thoughts to your friends at that age, your family at that age, your circle at that age, no one, if they're not entrepreneurs, they don't really understand where you're going. So you're pulling against a system that is not normal. Go to school, get a good job, get good grades, do this whole thing. And so as the years have gone on, I found myself as an entrepreneur very isolated in many circumstances where I'm doing X, they're doing Y. It doesn't mean X or Y is better than the other. And I feel like entrepreneurs run a lot of their days in silent suffering because you can't share the problems of being an entrepreneur with someone who gets a steady paycheck. And there's nothing wrong with either paradigm. But if you're in that 3 to 5% that is an entrepreneur in this world, I think statistically, then you probably resonate with what I'm saying. Having said that, every day I spent working on my mind at least 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, reading a book, listening to audio, subscribing to Today podcast. Well, fast forward to 2008 and 9, I'm in a really difficult situation. My business collapsed because not because the economy collapsed. My business went down in the middle of that. Financial destruction in my house, bankruptcy, foreclosure, divorce. I mean, it was a really difficult 18-month window, and you have to bounce back from that. And I think it was all the years of working on my mind, and finally I had some breakthroughs mentally where I was like, you know what, you didn't lose anything. You lost stuff that's tangible. You lost material. You lost, as we would say, you lost stuff that was temporal anyway. You can get all that stuff back. But what you didn't lose were your skills, your knowledge, your learnings, your colleagues, your friendships, your relationships. Everything that got you here, you can just rebuild. And so I began at that point saying, I want to pivot in what I was doing. So clearly I left the mortgage industry and I started a project a mentor at that time said to me, Daryl, what is the thing that gives you the most joy? What is the thing that lights you up more than anything? If you could do it every single day and never get a nickel for it, what would it be? And I was coaching youth football at that time for about 7 or 8 years. And I've been coaching with my best friend, and we were just having the time of our life and coaching young kids and mentoring them on the field. And it was more than sports. It was life. It was, some of these kids had tough parental situations, home situations, school situations. And we found ourselves leaning into the personal development of these kids while we're playing this game we all loved called football. You and I love football, so we could maybe get to that in a minute. And so I said, that one thing is coaching. That one thing is inspiring. That one thing is helping people close gaps. That one thing is helping people find breakthroughs. Well, fast forward to 2010, I started this little YouTube channel. And Troy, I thought the messages were good. I thought the ideas and concepts were good, but my energy wasn't right, my man. My energy wasn't quite there, and I just didn't feel it. So I tabled it. I shelved it. We went on with Yoka Local. We started in the marketing space. We grew this thing. And then the last 2 years or so, that feeling was back. That feeling was like, So it still took another 6 to 8 to 10 months to finally have another encounter with one of my mentors today who said something, and it just simply rocked me at that moment. And I'm like, dude, stop making excuses, because that's all you're doing right now is just making excuses. So anyway, long story short, that moment was in March of 2019. Here we are in August 1 today, 2019.
That's right.
And we launched the project this week. The Mindship Podcast is an interview-based podcast with people that I've been blessed to know and work with. And I'm just going to sit down and chat with them about life-changing alterations in 2 main categories. Number one, this idea of taking ideas from inspiration to realization, or from when life knocks you down, going from breakdown to breakthrough. Those are two streets that we all walk in life in any kind of way. And so rather than me be the expert and the guy who knows everything, I'm going to be talking to all the experts and people that I've known, friends, colleagues, associates, entrepreneurs, that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, a couple of things to note from that. One, you've got the voice for it, very sultry voice. So you got that check.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, I like that. It's when we talk about shift in the mind,
It starts with a sign, whether you're driving down the freeway and you see a billboard that jumps out at you and you think in your head and you shift the way you're thinking, you go a different direction, or a question. A lot of times a sign can come in the form of a question, where I like how your mentor asks you what brings you joy. A lot of new clients I talk to, I'll ask them what makes you happy, and they're not asked that a lot. So that shift in thinking gets them. So I love that. Show us your shirt there.
Some of your swag that do the reps.
New mind shift swag. We're working, the concept with mind shift is, everyone in the world won't be able to join our coaching programs, and that we want to make something, we want to put some product out there and build a community that anyone in the world, we have a global community we're starting to build on Facebook. We want anyone to be attached to this community in any way, whether it's listening, whether it's purchasing some merchandise, whether it's coming along with our coaching, our programs, our live events when we get down the road. We just want to really, the purpose, my mission, my personal mission statement, it took years to get it down to these 2 or 3 words, but it's to positively impact lives. And I've thought about this for years and really thought, what gives me the most joy when I leave an interaction or an encounter? And it's to leave someone hopefully in a better place than they were before we encountered each other in some small positive way. And that's not to make me out to be this guy who heals people or whatever, but I want to bring positive energy to everything I can, and hope that when they remember me or think of my name, that is the memory.
Yeah. And Daryl, everything you said is great. For those that are like, well, that's Daryl, and he doesn't know what I've gone through and what's happened to me and my, and they have these excuses and so forth, where I know you have negative thoughts. How do you overcome your negative thoughts?
It's a great question. So for the individual watching this who thinks that someone today who is in their chapter 12 of their story, and you may be in your chapter 1. First of all, remember they had a chapter 1. Yeah. Number 1. So, and number 2 is anytime someone starts a new project, for example, for me in this podcast, I knew nothing about podcasts, though I loved listening to them. I knew nothing about the technical background. I knew nothing about how to put it together and produce it. And it became a creative project. And I'm naturally a little non-creative. I'm very logical. I'm an analytical guy. I have a degree in finance, which is an interesting path to follow when you end up in the world of marketing. But when you understand data and analytics and how that plays in, it almost seems like it worked out perfectly. But to answer your question, I face uncertainty and doubt every single day. I'm a human. It doesn't matter how well my company has done, how well we've helped customers. I have a meeting when we get off this call, and I have to take another entrepreneur and understand their business in order to figure out how to help them out. The way I deal with uncertainty and doubt is just to figure out the first step to do and just do it, and then outline the next step and the next step and the next step. My biggest, most recent fear was, believe it or not, the fear that no one would like my show. The fear that I would post that I launched my show and nobody would say a word about it. Yeah. I'm not lying. That is absolutely what was going through my mind. The fear of judgment, the fear of non-acceptance. It's real. And you just have to say it's okay. And you're doing the work to do the work. Like, what's the purpose of the work? And just do the work. Everyone's not going to like it. Everyone's not going to watch every day or listen every day, but we have to do the work because if the mission is to positively impact lives, then someone is going to be impacted by the work. And if that's the meaning for doing the work, not a personal gratification, then we're going to do the work. We have to do the work.
To do the work. Absolutely have to do the work. Well, so let's say someone's watching this. They like everything that you're saying about the mind shift. And they listen to your podcast. What exactly, when you look for, what are you looking for in helping others in your coaching program, and how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So the Mindshift podcast, we've set up a website, and I think, first of all, you can listen to the Mindshift podcast anywhere on the podcast world right now. We're approved pretty much everywhere except iHeartRadio. We're just waiting for iHeartRadio. So that means if you're on Spotify and Apple, SoundCloud, Anchor, Stitcher, wherever you may be listening, Google Play, it's there. I will give a caveat that there's another show. There's several shows called Mind Shift Podcast. There's actually a show that is more popular than mine. There's several of them. So just make sure you use the word the Mind Shift Podcast. But the easiest way is themindshiftpodcast.com. We set up all the episodes there. So that's that. And I think the big connection is if you resonate with what we're talking about in the episodes and what we are some of my guests, what I'm doing is building a Facebook community, and this is probably the best thing. So going to the mindshiftpodcast.com and joining our email list will invite you to the Facebook group. And what I'm doing with our guests is I'm bringing our guests, as time goes on, we're going to bring the guests into the Facebook groups and do some private training, some private coaching. So the podcast is limited to a certain amount of time. But when I bring leaders in who are high performance coaches, like in episode 3, when I think about the people that are coming up in my whole first season, which I've already got 12 episodes recorded for everyone, these people are dynamic. And so I'm going to act, and because they're my friends, I'm pulling them back and saying, hey, can you come in and do a 15-minute Q&A? Can you do a 15-minute coaching session? These will all be free of charge. So we want people to be able to get content and training and help where they and get help, right? We want this to be a community of support and helping each other. So the mindshiftpodcast.com, you can start listening to episodes there, otherwise on all the networks. And if you join the email list, we'll of course get you invited to the free Facebook group to come participate and get support there.
And this is a perfect example of why we have the Always Go Big podcast. And you're a great example of that, always thinking big and then going out and doing it. And so we want to inspire others. But before I let you go, my brother, I need to do this.
Oh,
my cap God. Here.
Oh, you can't do that. I can't believe you set me up like that.
Because I know that you're a Rams fan. And we got football season coming up, my brother.
Football is knocking on the door. I need to go. I should go get my jersey real quick, man. That's all right, man. It's going to be fun this season. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be.
It's still love. It's still love, baby.
Hey, as long as it's the NFC West represented. But you're a great example. Remember, in business and in life,
never go small. Always go big. Thanks for being on, Daryl.
Thank you, Troy. I appreciate you.